Yo, what's up? About to fucking do this here.
There are some differences between the two, such as how many animals were on the ark, how long the flood lasted, and what birds were sent. For centuries, Noah's Ark was considered to be reporting history, while there are obvious scientific objections not discussed here.
What up, guys? About to do just a chat stream, I guess, while I do my hair. We're not in the art studio right now. Downstairs in the living room, basically the gallery portion of the house. I have to start charging people $5 admission just to come in my house, yo, just because so much art in here. You gotta pay to see all this stuff in person. So it's good, guys. It's Friday. It's officially the weekend. It's because it's after 5, right? Yeah, if you work that 9 to 5, you work that 9 to 5. It's the weekend now. Somebody getting drunk tonight. I didn't say I was, but somebody is. I didn't say I wasn't either, but you know, nobody can tell the future. My damn arms tired already. For real. I ain't gonna lie to you. What up, yo? Freestyle off this beat.
Unapologetic in my mannerisms. Came from a place with no substance, so I had to go to give me this. Had some mechanics of getting money, but now I'm getting dummy. And now I gotta run for something that I ain't hungry. And now I'm getting money from my homies that ain't dead yet. I just on the bands and told you that the feds hit. And I got money coming in like the head shit. That's a mug shot, that's a good shot. Tennis sweater band, this your hood knot. I can do a jubilee any day. Jamboree told me party on a Saturday, but it's a Tuesday, and everybody know that's a snooze day. I got the alarm clock blaming on my boo babe. Ay, I tell the sinners on my crew say, and I just do whatever my crew say. I tool take and I tool talk with my boo day. A tool day, it's a Tuesday with a boo, a tool day. It's a true day for a gun to shoot mate. And the same fuck with a con, a cool fate. I cannot fuck with my mate, they cool plate. I've been running with a plate, my tooth fake. I don't wanna talk about tooth, that tooth fake. I just a tooth sake, killing the source sake, and the people I forsake because they believe in me. Tennis and chunk and it's looking agility, running fast in the Philippines. I listen to the team. I don't wanna talk about Titanic. I've been running with Ironic, and I talk about it bad when I'm scrambling. I listen to Timberland. I don't wanna talk about Timberland. He been featuring me on his beat until listen with the feet and jumping up with the feet, and I never suffer defeat. Always victory. I listen to the sea, and I told you no voice boy. I listen to pants and they came back ice boy. Ahoy from a different planet. Tennis on the fence, and I told you I can't stand it. I'm out here stranded, hood life and I manage. I just wanted to land it, and I try to tell you that the Leonard ain't green, so Paul Walker cannot really stand it. And I write the book and the history too. Tell us who the tense and the history do. And they told you not to write what they told you do in school, but I gotta get cool, so I gotta wear the jacket and I get bitches ooh. Yeah, I just wanna tube, yeah. Rapping while I'm backing, I just wanna dance, and I told them buy matches. This is how the fire started. I can't manage it.
Killed the beat.
Huh?
Killed the beat.
Yeah.
What up, guys?
You might freestyle?
What's up, guys? Oh yeah, the boy do his own hair, man. Y'all ain't know I do my own hair.
At Ken Pollock Nissan, we make new friends every day. Whether you're looking for a new or used
commercial. Oh, double commercial. Hit you with the double whammy. That Jamaican mango and lime, real Jamaican beeswax with Blue Mountain honey in it. That shit is like it's almost edible. I wouldn't eat it, but it's like really organic, y'all. I've been using this product for years. I've been meaning to switch up and try something different. But I went through like 3 or 4 different products before I got to this. I've just been using this for years now. Everybody know that. It's good and it's inexpensive. I ain't tell y'all that the mayor yeah I think I already told y'all about this shit, but yeah, this shit funny as hell because that nigga, hey, that motherfucker in jail now, I think. But let's see. Delete that shit. Fucking the mayor, yo, this motherfucker came up on some Fed charges for bribery, embezzlement, something else, yo. Goddamn, he had like 3 or 4 charges on his ass. They was talking about that shit earlier today. I think they said his ass locked up. No. Looking at 32 years or some shit. Extortion was the last one, I think. Embezzlement, extortion, and bribery. The motherfucking mayor of the city. So he going down. But you just look at him. And you can tell he gonna rat. That motherfucker gonna rat his ass off. He looking at 32 or 36 years. That motherfucker gonna tell on everybody. But then he got caught, bro. That motherfucker got caught. PA messed up, man. It's a Commonwealth. It's a red state. Man, these old ass families around here, man, they stay in these positions for generations. Yeah. Oh, he gonna make it. They do got some I don't know, man, like almost 2 years ago, this restaurant owner went missing. Like just missing. And then I don't know if it was just rumor. I ain't never read this shit nowhere, but they said like at one of his restaurants somebody threw a red rose on the front doorstep or some shit. But they ain't never found this body or nothing. They said that shit was a mob hit. So he been affiliated with the mob or some shit. He fucked up. He fucking made his ass disappear. Yeah, due to heart failure. This motherfucker had a stroke or some shit. You take him out like Prince. You say, he died from pneumonia. Man, I wish I had somebody to do this. See if I can Google that shit real quick. Scranton Mayor Bill Courtright resigned on Monday, and on Tuesday he pled guilty to federal public corruption charges. Moving forward without a mayor, Scranton City Council met for the first time since the mayor's federal indictment. Scranton Mayor Bill resigned Monday, corruption charges. Wednesday, the City Council, mayorless City Hall, council members, city employees have been showing up to work for the past 2 days with a lot of uncertainty about the council laid out new steps moving forward since Cartwright left office. A new mayor has been picked. The citizens of Scranton who are really outraged that this has happened again. Yo, the city's been corrupt forever.
What happened?
I was trying to get to the first story. They got all these follow-up stories. Federal investigators detailed case against Courtright.
Here's a song about a new...
No, never mind. Listen to a song. Oh my God, this commercial is long.
Are you going to be making any statement at this point? Mayor, is there anything that you want to say?
Without comment, the former mayor of Scranton walks out of a federal courthouse after pleading guilty to corruption charges. Bill Courtright's stunning fall is our top story on Newswatch 16 at 6. Good evening, I'm Scott Schaefer. Charlotte is off. The circumstances of Bill Courtright's guilty plea began this morning at the federal courthouse in Williamsport. Courtright walked in and entered his plea. Attention then headed about 90 miles east to Scranton, where prosecutors laid out the case against the former mayor. Newswatch 16's Stacey Lang was in both cities today. She's live tonight in downtown Scranton. Stace.
Yes, Scott, good evening, Scranton.
Yep. You had called me. I tried to. Yeah, I tried to call you back. But
Just like virtual.
yeah.
Virtual hurt was
No.
on OJ's murderous cheat. Wow.
Yeah. Alright, well, I'm on YouTube Live right now, so yeah. Alright.
Now, former Mayor Bill Courtright surrendered to authorities at the federal courthouse in Williamsport this morning because of the judge that's been assigned to his case. Then this afternoon, the U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Pennsylvania detailed a years-long investigation into corruption at City Hall that he says is still very much open. Bill Courtright went from mayor of Scranton to admitted felon in just under 18 hours. Courtright was silent as we asked him questions ahead of his guilty plea. Nothing to the people who elected you? Any kind of explanation? Inside the courtroom in Williamsport, prosecutors laid out all the evidence that would have come out in trial. It was all collected in an undercover FBI investigation that started in 2017. Prosecutors said they could prove that Courtright took bribes in the form of cash payments, campaign contributions, work at his karate studio in West Scranton, and landscaping at his home. In a news conference later in the day in Scranton, U.S. Attorney David Freed said that when agents raided Courtright's home back in January, they found a safe in the basement. Inside that safe, close to $30,000, some of it FBI-marked bills. Courtright was secretly recorded for years in conversations with city employees and at least 3 city vendors working with the FBI. Freed described some of what the agents heard.
At that time, Courtright expressed concern that the person running that business might be working with, quote, the feds, unquote. Courtright suggested the cash should be given to an intermediary who would then give it to Courtright. Regarding that person, Courtright asked, is he going to sing that he gave you if he ever gets nailed? After being assured that person number 1 would not implicate Courtright, he said, if they say you gave it to me, I'm going to say you never gave me a dime.
Freed says the corruption investigation started with 2 or 3 different threads and that the case is not closed. Courtright was their first target, he said, because he was the elected official and head of city government.
Well, partly depressing and just sad, for the whole city and for, we vote for these people and we pay our taxes, we go to work, and it really is upsetting.
Not shocked. I was surprised with this mayor. But it gets me wondering if there are any honest politicians left around here. It seems like every couple of years, county commissioners, mayors, school officials.
Now, Bill Courtright was released after his hearing this morning in Williamsport without having to post bail, which is typical for these types of federal cases. He's scheduled to be sentenced in November and faces a maximum of 35 years behind bars. Stacey Lang, Newswatch 16, reporting live in Scranton.
All right.
I thought they said his ass was in jail. They let him walk without a bail. And looking at 35 years? How you facing 35 years and don't get no bail? My, how Bill Courtright has fallen. Yeah. Like she said, no answers for the people who elected you. Like, come on. These people put you in the seat of mayor to run their city, and what you do? Embezzle money, take bribes, extort motherfuckers. Man, like the dude said, every couple of years it's somebody. I remember one time they had some charges on the damn. The chief of the fire department or some shit, like how the fire department got corruption and shit. Y'all motherfuckers ain't want to do right at all. Nobody. You just got one job.
Every additive, booster, detergent, and seal conditioner.
Amazon gift card? Sign up for Curio?
You probably have a watch. Without it, you would be lost in a world that demands people be on time. Some watches are more accurate than others. How accurate is yours? How long before it loses 1 second? Periodically, you adjust it by reckoning from a more accurate source. Whatever the source, it is also imperfect and has to be regularly updated, though not as often, to be in accord with the master clock of the United States at the Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C. Until 1967, naval astronomers observed the Earth's motion in relation to the heavens to accurately measure time. All U.S. clocks were set in relation to these precise measurements. It was God who made this master clock of the universe.
Objection, speculation, unsupported assumptions asserted as fact.
He set the heavens in motion, and man learned to use its wonderful accuracy.
We have no reason to believe in a God. You were supposed to provide proof of that, and you haven't done it. Also, the heavens only allow us to measure time on a large scale, and even that isn't wonderfully accurate. For example, one day lasts 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. Every 4 years, we have to add a day to February because the calendar isn't right either. That and the rotation of the Earth is slowing down and will continue slowing down until the moon recedes far enough that it eventually wanders away. Now, you'd think that if everything was created by an intelligence who intended that we keep track of time, then the rotation of the Earth and the number of rotations within a single orbit of the Sun would have some clear determination.
What?
It would be at least divisible and consistently measured in round numbers. But the things we'd expect of the sort of world that a god would magically create for humanity.
Man, are you making this shit up? Nobody making no damn counterfeit money. Like, that was the early 2000s. So I'm gonna cut right. The whole bull's going down. This motherfucker ran strong on me votes. Oh my god. This takes so long. Jordan did all that shit from the golf course too. Just texting motherfuckers. Yeah. I got it covered.
They are never the things we actually see.
But God's great clock holds more marvels. In 1968, scientists built an atomic clock that uses cesium-133 atoms because they vibrate at the rate of 9,192,631,770 times per second. This is accurate to within 1 second every 30 million years. Imagine your watch was that accurate. Cesium-133 atoms never vary a single vibration. They are steady, constant, reliable, and cannot be an accident of nature that just happens to always turn out exactly the same.
Why not? How would you know? Why can't the properties of natural elements be natural? I think you're saying that because you don't know what you're talking about. You remind me of this guy.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. Never a miscommunication. You can't explain that.
You're assuming your conclusion. Elemental atomic structures and chemical compounds have natural properties as an inevitable consequence of their configuration. Add the right number of atomic particles with the appropriate bonds, and this is what happens. There is no designer apparent, necessary, or even possible. That's why nothing matches whatever we want to measure, not even days or years. It's no different whether we measure time, space, warps in space-time, or any other dimension. For example, a gram is an absolute weight of a cubic centimeter of water at a temperature of melting ice, or 4 degrees Celsius. Likewise, a meter is the length of the path traveled by light in a vacuum during a time interval of 1,299,792,458 of a second. We have a constant for the speed of light, most of the time, but not for much else. Most everything else in the universe.
Whoa. You just said some shit, yo.
792,458 of a second. We have a constant for the speed of light, most of the time, but
we have a constant for the speed of light, most of the time. People don't know that light don't really travel at the same speed, whatever they consider light speed to be. That shit fluctuates sometimes. And there was the bent mirror test that prove that light doesn't actually always travel at the same speed. Not Paxton the meth pusher.
Not for much else. Most everything else in the universe appears to be incidental arrangements, shifting balance in what is usually a chaotic mess.
God had to design the complexity and reliability of these atoms. No honest mind can believe otherwise.
Every honest mind can believe otherwise, and educated minds do. I have an honest mind, which is why I don't believe in your God or your religion. Faith is the most dishonest position it is possible to have. And any belief that requires faith should be rejected for that reason, and I'm certainly not alone in that. There is a statistical negative correlation that the more educated one is, the less one even can believe what you believe. Mainstream scientists overwhelmingly believe in the natural construct of elemental chemistry and physics without trying to imagine where they could fit gods or magic into the picture. For example,
but the little quartz crystal always vibrates the same number of times per second, no matter what the temperature is, no matter what the pressure is, no matter what the motion of the quartz crystals is. So that's how we measure time passing, by comparing one repetitive thing to another repetitive thing.
That's Sean Carroll, a professional cosmologist specializing in general relativity. He's also an outspoken atheist who honestly believes that there's no reason to believe that any god ever monkeyed with the physics, and he should know, as he is a professor of physics with a doctorate in astrophysics.
Doubters, consider this. Scientists at the National Institute of Standards and Technology in Colorado have built an optical clock even more accurate by measuring time with light. Time is now measured in what are called femtoseconds, or 1,000,000 billionth of a second. These clocks use mercury ions at their heart to count the number of times they vibrate in a second. Optical frequencies consistently oscillate at 1,000,000 billion, or 1 quadrillion times per second. By using lasers and cooled down mercury ions, scientists have harnessed God's precision to better measure time. Optical clocks only slip by 1 second every 30 billion years. This is 1,000 times more accurate than atomic clocks. As with the movement of the heavens, men have learned to capture the reliability of cesium-133 atoms and the movement of cooled mercury ions to count time with oscillations per second that never vary. Could such perfect order really be the result of an accident?
I have to guess that by accident, you mean any event that was unintended, in which case, absolutely yes. Such perfect order could only come from the calculable conditions of natural phenomena. There is no mechanism by which any being could direct such things, and there's no indication that any such being could even exist outside of human imagination.
With great time and effort, the world's finest watchmakers can at best devise relatively imprecise clocks. Can any fair-minded person believe the three highly precise clocks, the heavens, atomic, and optical clocks, came by chance?
That is the only option. We know they could not have been intended or deliberately manipulated, certainly not by an incantation spell cast by a god, the most primitive excuse men have ever imagined to explain anything, and which doesn't explain anything. Miracles defy the laws of physics by definition, which means that it is impossible for a god to exist, nor could he actually know anything or do anything if he did exist. And while biology, geology, and physics and other evolutionary sciences continue to improve the human condition, religion has a perfect record of absolute failure in all applications every single time, which proves that it's wrong.
Are we to believe that very sophisticated, humanly devised watches required the effort and ingenuity of skilled, intelligent men to create them? The clocks of far greater sophistication, precision, and design developed on their own? How utterly foolish to believe.
While demonstrating that you have no understanding of the topics you're discussing, you're also criticizing all the world's best educated expert specialists anywhere ever. A survey of the American Association for the Advancement of Science shows only about a third of their scientists believe in a God. A poll of the National Academy of Sciences was 85% atheist. It's almost the opposite of the laity, where we have the same percentage of common folk who believe in a God as we have educated experts who don't. But your situation is worse than that. Religious scientists are the most rare in biology, geology, and physics, the very fields that directly relate to creationism and where you would think there'd be more believers, because the evidence indicates the opposite of what you think it does. In fact, a Newsweek poll in 1987 revealed that less than 1% of Earth and life scientists give any credence to creationism. So if 99.44% equals pure, as it does in the silver trade, then Bill Maher was right when he said that
evolution is supported by the entire scientific community.
So however you cut it, the most brilliant minds of the modern age all believe what you say only a fool could believe. And all of them could prove what you have already shown, that you are a fool.
You've seen absolute proof only the greatest watchmaker, God, could have devised these greatest watches.
No. We still haven't seen the slightest indication that your God could even exist, much less do anything. So far, you haven't even shown that the idea of your God warrants serious consideration.
What is the truth of modern science regarding the origin of all matter in the universe? Do scientists claim it has always existed? Or have they determined there was a moment in time when all matter came into existence? The latter answer is yes. But what is the proof?
The proof is that many galaxies appear red-shifted, meaning they're moving away. Space is kind of a slowly boiling mass of chaos, with some galaxies crashing into each other along with everything else. But for the most part, they're moving apart, as if the universe is expanding. That means that if we look at it in reverse, then the universe is compacting until ultimately all matter and energy, time, and even empty space, literally everything, inflated from a single point of entry called the singularity. This is the only logical conclusion mathematically calculated to nearly 14 billion years ago. Further evidence of that is the cosmic microwave background radiation, which was predicted by these calculations and then discovered in the 1970s.
The first law of thermodynamics is matter and energy can be neither created nor destroyed. No natural processes can alter either matter or energy in this way. This means there is no new matter or energy coming into existence and no matter or energy passing out of existence.
That's not entirely accurate.
We might have matter and energy leaving the universe through black holes, which appear to be literal holes in the fabric of space-time. One explanation for the inflation of our universe from a singularity is that all matter and energy and everything else flooded into this universe from a rift in the fabric of space-time, and that ours is just one of many universes to have erupted this way.
Saying the universe came into existence from nothing violates the first law of thermodynamics, established by the very scientific community now willing to ignore it.
They're not ignoring it. And since you've demonstrated that you have no idea what you're talking about and everything you've said so far is wrong, then I can't trust anything you say and we'll have to defer to the experts. In this case, physics professor Lawrence Krauss, PhD, author of A Universe from Nothing.
The simplest kind of nothing. It's the kind of nothing.
Well, it's not like a whole J.
infinite
Cole album.
empty
It's
space,
more like
infinite dark.
he got like a bunch of people from the
nothing in it, no particles, no radiation,
that he messed
nothing.
with. And
Well,
Oh no,
that kind of
my
nothing
homeboy
was
told me about that earlier. It's a dream
But it's
build
much more
album.
complicated than you might imagine. Because due to the laws of quantum mechanics and relativity,
like, you
we now know that
Middle
empty
Child,
space
right?
is a boiling,
like how he
bubbling
made that
blue
song.
of
It's like
virtual
he's the
particles
middle
that
child
pop
of
in and
hip
out of
hop.
existence.
And I was
every
like,
moment.
okay, he
And in
made a
fact,
song
for
about
that
it.
kind of nothing,
But I feel like
if you
that
wait long
album
enough,
kind of proves
you're
it.
guaranteed
like,
by the laws of
he
quantum
is the middle
mechanics
child
pretty
of hip hop
something.
now. Because now he
So
came
the difference
from the old
between
school,
empty
but now he
space
got
with
people
stuff
from
in
the
it
new school.
and empty
Not
space with
even
nothing
just
in
people
it,
from Dreamville, but
it's
like
not that
people
great
like Ski
anymore. In
Mask
fact,
and
they're
Soul
different
God.
versions of the
It's
same
just
thing.
like,
So the
made a whole
transition
album
from nothing to
with
something
David
is not
Lynch
so
and
surprising.
So I kind of do
See,
feel
we
like
always
he
said that the
really
most
is like
ingenious
middle
people
child hip
capable of
hop.
figuring out anything were rocket scientists and
Like,
brain
he proved
surgeons.
it, you know.
Well, at least we can still say that about rocket scientists.
This is going to break up.
This law plainly demonstrates that the universe and all matter and energy within it must have had a divine origin, a specific moment in which it was created by someone all-powerful.
This law does not in any way imply that the origin of the universe should be divine, nor that it was even created by anything, much less anyone. And there is no indication that there even could be anyone who is all-powerful. You're compiling unsupported assumptions atop unwarranted assumptions.
With the discovery of radium in 1898 by Madame Curie came the knowledge that all radioactive elements continually give off radiation. Consider, uranium has an atomic weight of 238. As it decomposes, it releases a helium atom 3 times. Each helium atom has a weight of 4. Now at 226, uranium becomes radium. Radium continues giving off additional atoms until eventually the end product becomes the heavy inert element lead. This takes a tremendous amount of time. Just radium becoming lead requires 1,590 years. What's the point? There was a time when uranium could not have existed because it always breaks down in a highly systematic and controlled way. Not stable like lead or other elements, uranium breaks down. So there was a specific moment when all radioactive elements came into existence. Remember, all of them, uranium, radium, thorium, radon, polonium, protactinium, and others, have not existed forever. This represents absolute proof that matter came into existence. In other words, matter has not always existed. This flies directly in the face of evolutionary thought, that everything gradually evolved into something else. The problem? You cannot have something slowly come into existence from nothing. Matter could not have come into existence by itself. No rational person could possibly believe the entire universe, including all radioactive elements that prove there was a specific time of beginning, gradually came into existence by itself.
Every rational person who knows this subject will tell you that uranium has a half-life of 4.5 billion years, which is about as old as the Earth. But that's only its half-life, which means that uranium could exist for 9 billion years and still have a quarter of its original quantity left. Even some irrational people understand this. Sir Fred Hoyle was the scientist who first determined how uranium was created. If you have one proton, you've got hydrogen. If you could stick another one onto it, you'd have helium. When you add protons, you very often get neutrons too. Stick on another one, you've got lithium, and keep going to get beryllium, boron, carbon, and so on. Every element up to and including iron can be created this way out of no more than simple hydrogen atoms being super accelerated in the intense heat and pressure of the sun. Hoyle figured out that all the heavier elements beyond iron could be created this way too. It just needed a hotter furnace. So according to the World Nuclear Association, the Earth's uranium was produced in one or more supernovae over 6 billion years ago. This is what rational people believe. Irrational people believe in things like gods and magic.
Try to build something, anything from nothing. Even with your creative power engaged in the effort, you would never be able. You cannot, in 100 lifetimes of trying, produce a single thing from nothing. Can any doubter believe everything in the entirety of the universe, in all its exquisite detail, came into existence completely by itself? Be honest. Again, accept facts. This is proof that the natural physical realm demands the existence of a great creator.
I am always honest, and I have no choice but to accept the facts. Well, what facts should I accept? We know about quantum fluctuation. We know about cosmic inflation and about how supermassive gravity affects space-time. We also know that the natural physical realm does not demand any kind of magical creator. Because, as my friend Victor Stenger said, we have perfectly workable scenarios for how the universe could have come about naturally, from nothing, along with the laws of physics and so on. So why don't you be honest and accept the facts?
The second law of thermodynamics is best summarized by saying everything moves toward disorder, a condition known as entropy. This bears some explanation. Remember, evolutionists teach that everything is constantly evolving into a higher and more complex order. They believe things continue to get better and better instead of worse and worse.
You got a point there. Just look at your own promo ad.
In a violent age full of war, famine, pollution, disease, disasters, and economic uncertainty, and ever-worsening bad news.
You're trying to scare people into desperate beliefs. You long for the good old days when only white heterosexual Protestant Christian men had rights, and you don't want to acknowledge all the advances in technology, medicine, agriculture, and humanity. You'd rather pretend that everything's getting worse and worse. But if you look at the actual numbers, you've got everything backwards. You'll see that the crime rate, and particularly acts of violent crime, are actually going down. Things that were commonly accepted a generation ago are now considered atrocities because we're maturing. The only thing that's actually getting worse and worse is the environment, which you won't admit is an issue even to be addressed. These are some of the reasons why the world is moving away from religious beliefs. Another is the correlation between deep religiosity and criminality, excessive hatred, violence, corporal punishment, capital punishment, torture, and the abuse and molestation of dependents, children, and animals. Once upon a time, religious people were automatically revered as upstanding morality, but not anymore. Religion is mostly associated with irrational ignorance, intolerance, and bigotry now.
If water on a stove is at 150 degrees Fahrenheit and the burner is turned off, the temperature drops instead of rises. It moves toward colder, not hotter.
But honestly though, really, is there really a hell? Is there really a hell? That guy can tell you. I don't know. But it's back. The preacher dude has that whole argument again, which is something from nothing. And so scientists are going to say, you know, energy and all this shit just always was. Like people say God always was.
Walls on hills always roll down, not up. Energy to perform any task changes from usable to unusable during the task. It will always go from a higher energy level to a lower one, where less and less energy is available. Applied to the universe, the second law of thermodynamics reveals that the universe is winding down, moving toward disorder, entropy, not winding up or moving toward more perfect order and structure. In short, the entire universe is slowing down. Even evolutionists admit that the theory of evolution and this law are completely incompatible. Notice, regarding the second law of thermodynamics, universally accepted scientific law which states that all things left to themselves will tend to run down, or the law of entropy, it is observed it would hardly be possible to conceive of two more completely opposite principles than this principle of entropy increase and the principle of evolution. Each is precisely the converse of the other. As Aldous Huxley defined it, evolution involves a continual increase of order, of organization, of size, of complexity. It seems axiomatic that both cannot possibly be true. But there is no question whatever that the second law of thermodynamics is true.
You just presented Henry Morris as if he were an evolutionist, meaning someone who accepts mainstream science as opposed to dogmatic belief in magical fairy tales. But Henry Morris never accepted or even understood evolution. He founded the Institute for Creation Research, an anti-science apologetics ministry whose mission is to mislead and deceive those who would have otherwise understood and accepted science and consequently discard the sacred fables on which their form of religious extremism depends. Now, even if you meant to refer to Morris's mention of Huxley, Thomas Huxley was an evolutionary scientist. Aldous Huxley was not. Aldous was a mystic, and he apparently did not understand that evolution does not require a continued...
Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World.
He was increase in order, organization, size, or even complexity. All of these can stagnate or fluctuate. Just to clarify, no evolutionist ever, not even one, ever agreed that the second law of thermodynamics posed any kind of problem for evolution because, and you forgot to mention this, that law only applies to a closed system. But that doesn't matter here because the Earth is not a closed system. Evolution, like all aspects of biology, derives its energy from the sun. So the reason that McDonald's became an increasingly complex and highly prolific international company is the same reason that evolution works also.
Like a top or a yo-yo, the universe must have been wound up. Since it's constantly winding down, the second law of thermodynamics begs a great question. Who wound it up? The only plausible answer, God.
You think God is a plausible answer? Plausible. A God. You think that it's reasonable or probable to imagine that the universe was poofed out of nothing by an incantation cast by a magic invisible genie? You're right about one thing. It does beg the question. Question begging is a logical fallacy of circular reasoning in which you include the conclusion to be proven in the premise of the question. In this case, who wound it up assumes that someone must have done it as opposed to something. And it assumes that it was wound up. Right. Cosmology doesn't imply either of these things.
We have established that...
And that shit only took me an hour. Alright guys, I'm about to sit under the dryer for a minute. And I'll probably be up in the studio later on. I'll catch you guys after that.